And you are listening to another edition of Blewetts Blitz, joined by my good friend, one Mr. Michael Nania. Before we get into anything, Mr. Nania, any truth to the allegations that you told me to F off when the Jets were not winning? You said, you know what, I'm not coming on the show until the Jets win. Screw you. I'll come on when they win. And that this is why this is your first appearance of the 2025 season.
Yes, you became an aggressive pro tanker, according to your tweets during this past game. And I believe in winning for confidence and momentum and all of those very meaningful things. So I wasn't going to come on until there was a win that supported my anti-tank narratives and goes against your clearly pro-tank narratives. That's all you care about is the Jets losing. So I couldn't come on until we had a win.
It's funny. Like, as soon as I tweet out, like, okay, I think maybe it's the point to start rooting against them, they come back and win. But realistically, it's just about what's best for the franchise. And if they're going to start ripping off games now and winning some games, even if they win, 4 or 5 games, but it looks like this consistently where the offense is actually coming to play, obviously we want the defense to play as well, right? Like, the defense was terrible, but a great first win for the Jets, down 17-3. Was it 23 points in the fourth quarter that they scored? So they just kept coming back and answering. And the defense, not a good game, but obviously they stepped up those last, few drives, maybe 2 or 3 drives that didn't allow points. So good job by them, at least at the end, to step up. So an exciting win. I didn't think the Jets were going to finish, with no wins throughout the entire season. So we expected it at some point. But it is funny, like the timing, of course. It's like, okay, maybe root against them now. And I just started looking back into the quarterbacks, but maybe I got to add some Lenoris Sellers or the Mateer guy from Oklahoma, because the Jets are going to be picking, 15th, 16th, 20 or into the 20s now. So, overall thoughts though, like, do you, actually, where were you before this game? Let's say that, because I haven't talked to you in a little bit. Before this game, were you kind of leaning into like, hey, is it time to start, maybe rooting for losses? I'm almost there. Like, where were you before this game with this staff? I know you've been critical of them, because realistically, we had to be critical of Aaron Glenn. Like, it's not a thing where he was undeservingly criticized. We were 0-7. Some of the decisions he was making, I know, were driving you crazy based on your articles and all that stuff. So where did you sit before this game, and now where do you kind of sit after the game?
Yeah, I was on a really, and I think still am, a very interesting sort of bubble regarding what I'm rooting for, because they're kind of, I think, were and still are, even at this point, kind of on the fence between this point of, I don't know if I'm so bought into where I'm, rooting for wins aggressively as if it were the beginning of the season or a playoff chase or something like that, because, the playoffs are out of the question. And I also don't know yet if this is, a staff you can fully rally behind, because a nice win here, but it's still 1-7 in those first 7 games, 1-score losses or not. We know that the coaching was very, very questionable, and it's very daunting to think about the idea of, the Jets have a franchise quarterback coming in next year. Do you want this to be the staff that's coaching him? At this point, I still don't know if you can answer that with a yes. And, before this game, it was definitely a no. This is trending towards it, being a little more confident in that idea. But yeah, I think I was sort of on the fence, because I'm not necessarily rooting for a tank, because, first of all, there's no Trevor Lawrence in this class anyway. And even if there were, the last 5 years have shown us that that's not the guaranteed reward that it may have once been with like a Peyton Manning and Andrew Luck. With Trevor's a below average quarterback. Bryce Young is probably bad. I mean, we'll see what happens. Kyler Murray's not great. So, like, I don't think there's much benefit in that being like a guaranteed solution anyway. You need the right supporting cast around that guy. So the more they lose, the less likely it is they have the right supporting cast to even prop up whoever it is they select. So I'm not necessarily rooting for losses, but I also don't know if I am so bought into where, I want to see them win 2 or 3 fake type of games where, you run it back with this staff, but they are actually not showing you too much. They ruin this quarterback, and then you get like the Brian Callahan scenario of, you ran it back with these guys just because, like, you wanted to be patient, and then you fire him midway through next season. Now the quarterback's cycling through coaches, and so the cycle continues that the Jets have been through with Sam Darnold and so on. So it's still a bubble sort of position for me right now. I mean, I'll get to the point of rooting for losses because again, I just don't think it's that appealing. The fact that they need to be number one or anything like that. They'll be near the top. We know that. So I don't think I'll ever get to the point of rooting for them to lose. But it's also I'm still debating whether this staff is the right staff going forward. And this was a step in the right direction. If this is a sign of things to come from Glenn, from the team as a whole, like I think that's what makes this difficult or kind of like complex to react to. Because if this does turn out to be the start of 6-4, 7-3, 8-2, whatever type of finish that they build from this point on, then I think it goes down as, this is a great win. But if this is just one of the 2 wins that they get this year, then maybe it's just a fluke that doesn't have too much value. So I think that's definitely like complex sort of reactions to what it means. Obviously, I'm happy for Glenn and the team. It's great to get this win, and hopefully they stack them up. But it's really, for me, still pending on whether they can build on this for me to view it as an unequivocal positive for the long term perspective.
Yeah, you said exactly what my response was going to be. Like it's one win, build upon it. If you don't, it doesn't matter really that much, right? Like you're gonna get a win. So I think you laid that up perfectly. Where I don't even really need to comment on it. Those are my thoughts. Build upon it, and let's hope they over the last 9 games they have, can they win 4 or 5 of those games? Then okay, like hey, we're building something. We have some talent here. Maybe Angstrom in this offense, maybe they can build around a quarterback. But if you come out here and you only get another win or 2 after this, and it's a meaningless one in like week 16 and 17, then what are we talking about? Like next week is big, or in 2 weeks is big. If they come out and they look like crap again versus the Browns, kind of all hope is lost. But can you hopefully build upon it? So that's what you hope for. Like I don't think it's a thing where, and people know what it is. I've said it multiple times. Like obviously I'm a Jets fan first, and I want what's best for the franchise. So if I'm at the point where I think, hey, this staff is completely gone and getting the first overall pick will help them more, then I'll root for that. But at this point, I think they have some time to turn around. And like you said, with the first pick, obviously, I think like that tends to, I think that's a long conversation because obviously the teams up top are the worst organizations to kind of build around a quarterback where you get guys later on in the draft. Those quarterbacks are on those better organizations. So maybe that's why they work out. With all that being said, would I rather have my first pick of the litter versus the third pick of the litter? Of course, right? Like hopefully the Jets have enough conviction, whoever they like, if they were the first overall pick, that he would work out. But I think like the stuff with like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and all of those guys, it tends to be because of the teams are better who are then developing those guys. Look at Sam Darnold, and obviously it took quite a few years after the Jets let him go for him to become good. But maybe if he went to the Bills or the Ravens, he would have been successful earlier. So that's definitely a long conversation about what.
And I think to add to that kind of adds to the appeal of why you would want to see them win more games, because if they do land at 8th, 9th, 10th, whatever, because they finish with 6-7 wins here, then you feel better about, even though they dropped this, they're showing you that they're a better landing spot for a quarterback. So they might get a lower ranked prospect or one that they preferred less, but having won those games, they've shown you that they're a better landing spot. Because as we look at them right now, it's not a good landing spot. It's still a nice win here against the Bengals, but you're still 1-7. They still technically should have the first pick. They're tied in strength of schedule. Offense, defense, both low ranked. Glenn has had one nice game coaching here, but a lot of poor ones before that. So as you look at it right now, it's still not a great landing spot. Even if you get a quarterback number 1 who, looking at this class, there are some good guys, but there's also not anyone who's, generational or anything. So the more they win games, the more that they inspire confidence in, them being able to develop someone. But it also depends on the quality of the wins. Like I think this win, even though the defense struggled from a quarterback standpoint, the quarterback development, this was a big positive in terms of building their stock in that way. The way they coached offensively, the way Glenn coached this game and his approach, all that stuff was major growth. They played very poorly defensively, but regarding bringing in a quarterback, that doesn't matter too much. So if they have more games like this, even if they lose, some high scoring games or whatever, then I think you could feel a lot better. So as much as it's about the wins and losses, it's really about the quality of what they show. And I feel like this game, the quality of the overall play and the things that matter for them long term were still good, even if they didn't finish it in the end. I like Aaron Glenn managed the game much better. He was more aggressive, but not in a reckless way. It was calculated and it made sense within the context of the game. They, didn't fold in the end of half situation. At the end of the first half, they were aggressive, finally making up for what they did the last couple games. And then just the offensive play calling was a lot more balanced, unpredictable. They enforced the line of scrimmage. So there were a lot of things in that respect where, okay, if you can give us 9 more games of this, then I'll trust you with the quarterback. First 7 games, that's not a staff I want to see handling a quarterback. But this, 9 more games of it, I'll trust it. We just have to see it first, because right now it's one game against the Bengals, who might have the worst defense in the league, or most likely at this point.
Yeah.
So you got to.
They definitely weren't good. Like, I'll be honest, they definitely weren't good. There were some wide open throws that Justin Fields was making. Obviously, credit him. There's a few plays he missed as well, and I'll get into all of that in the film review, which I'll actually be recording in a couple of hours. But I think the only thing I questioned Glenn really for this game was, I don't remember the situation, but they go for it on 4th and 1 from like their 35, 40-yard line, like early in the game. And then I think it's a couple of drives later. I don't know exactly the score. I don't know if it was 17-3 or 17-0 or
he kicked the field goal on the 4th and 1.
He kicked a field goal. Yeah, on the 4th and 1. At that point, I was kind of like, okay, you're winless. Like, you were aggressive at that point on your 30, 35-yard line. Like, why not go for it there? They kicked the field goal. They end up winning by 1 point. Again, I'm not the first type of person to like, oh, it doesn't work out, or it works out and then don't criticize it, or if it doesn't work out, then criticize it. At that point, I'll be honest. I was like, okay, I'd rather see him go for it there. They kicked the field goal. They won, obviously. But it was good. Like, the locker room clearly reacted to Aaron Glenn, and for all the talk of how he's lost the locker room and stuff, the locker room seemed pretty juiced up to see him get his first win. It was almost so predictable, right? That like everybody at the beginning of the week was like, there's no way they beat the Bengals. Woody Johnson things happen. It's like, of course, the most Jets thing that happened is now that Justin Fields comes out and plays a good game, and the Jets win. Maybe Woody Johnson's a mastermind, and that's his way to motivate the team, even though I severely doubt that. But yeah, no, it was good. And as Eagles thing says here, obviously with the Nick Mangold stuff, there's really not much you would say. That's probably the first draft where I remember legitimately watching with him and Brick, and always a great guy. And like, it makes me ask questions. Like, I know he apparently was diagnosed with this kidney disease like relatively early on, and he was undergoing dialysis. But like, did it just come up really quickly where he went downhill quickly? I don't know, but obviously, RIP to a Jets legend. I think a guy who may be in the Hall of Fame, and this might even elevate him into the Hall of Fame. But a brutal start to the day. Go check out Matt O'Leary. He put out shirts and sweatshirts that go right to donating to some type of people who are fighting kidney disease. So obviously terrible news. Again, the first, like, that was really when I becoming a diehard in 2006. So really started my Jets life off with Nick Mangold, and just always remembering him as a great guy. That it hit me pretty hard. And then seeing the Rex Ryan stuff on social media was also brutal, but makes you think, man, like the guy is 9 years older than me, and he passed. So obviously RIP to Mangold. I don't know if you have anything to add to your memories of Mangold, but
yeah, I mean, I did an article on it yesterday. I wanted to sum up a lot of the feelings I had, because like you, it hit me really hard, especially when I saw Rex. Like, that really tore me apart. But yeah, I mean, I came along later than you. It was 2011 was really my first season watching, but I just remembered, I didn't really know much about football at all at that point. So I knew like Mark Sanchez and Revis, like some of the biggest names on the team, but I didn't know anything about the offensive line or what that even was or what its impact was. So I would see all the 74 jerseys at, it was then New Meadowlands Stadium, but I would see all those jerseys. And, I remember asking my dad, like, who is that? I see all these jerseys, because 74 is a weird number compared to, single digits, 20s. Like, I was used to seeing that. So, then I learned about who Mangold was. And that was just my introduction to like what an offensive lineman even was. And the fact that they could be a superstar and a face of the team. And, he was always such a face and a representative of the logo and the team. Just, he was always around it as a player, after, even, to this day, always, he was mentoring Tippmann last year. He was, in the parking lot with fans constantly. So, yeah, it's just very, very heartbreaking to see that, especially, like you said, he's young. This is a guy we grew up watching very, very recently. So like it hits you so hard when it's, someone like that. I mean, you see the news all the time, like celebrities will, public figures will pass away, musicians, actors, whatever. And it's always heartbreaking, obviously. But, if they're older, it's a little bit different. Or if it's someone you weren't too connected to. But then like when you get this type of news and it's someone who, you were so uniquely connected to for an athlete in a way that I don't think you see with a lot of athletes. You watch them play.
Yeah.
But like it was something greater than that with Mangold, the way that he connected with fans and the fan base as a whole and really represented the organization well. And it just kind of highlighted the connection that you start to build with some of these guys from afar, especially someone as, admirable as him. So, yeah.
Yeah, he really dove into the Jets community, and it's fitting that they win their first game in Ohio, and that's where he was born. But I know he only lived a few minutes from Florham Park and all that stuff. And I don't remember the game he gave his Ring of Honor speech at. I remember I was there though, and I remember when he cracked the beer, all the fans went crazy and stuff. So, yeah, man, I never had his jersey. I actually had a brick jersey. I feel like I have to get a Mangold jersey now, like a throwback white or something like that for Mangold. But yeah. Big RIP to him. That's crazy. But going back to the game. I don't know how you even go back to the game, but good game, I guess. And actually, let's say hello to the chat a little bit, and we'll kind of naturally go into the game. I have a film review coming out again, 40 something plays. Offense was pretty good. Again, Justin Fields. I think he was solid in this game. I don't know how to quantify. I always kind of feel better about my grades and stuff once I actually go back and record the show, because I'm recording the clips. It kind of just get a little bit mindless, but I feel like it was a B-level game for him. There's definitely some misses, but some throws in some big spots as well. He obviously had a good game relative to all the expectations, from the last few weeks that he's had, and obviously ton of pressure with Woody Johnson. The running game was awesome. The offensive line, I know the big three of Tippmann, Fashanu, and Membu didn't allow a pressure, so they were great. The running game was awesome. Breece Hall, I saw that Eagle said it's his best game as a Jet. I don't think it's his best game as a Jet. I think it was a good game for Breece Hall as well. And then Isaiah Davis, Hive, stand up, because he finally had a game that I expected him to have. Man, I've been saying his name for I think legitimately since the draft, since both him and Braylon Allen got drafted. I said that I like Isaiah Davis's film a little bit better, and I've been kind of touting that rock for quite a bit. Now it's funny to hear everybody on Twitter is oh yeah, Isaiah Davis. I'm yeah, dude. We've been on the
Braylon Allen had some interesting play calling insight as well during the game, I saw.
Yeah, man. And of course, you get the people who are oh, he's a football player, he knows more than you. I'm okay, well, what happens when one football player's here and one football player's here and they disagree with each other? Because if they're both always right all the time, then who do you side with? You're still allowed to have an opinion. And he's basically calling out the fans for saying, oh, well, if they sneaked it, they would have got stuffed, or all the gaps were stuffed up. It's it's not the point. Typically, teams know that a QB sneak is coming, specifically the tush push that the Jets voted for and haven't used yet. But he said all the gaps were gapped up, but also the A gap was gapped up by a linebacker who was standing 2 yards off the ball. And Justin Fields is 225 pounds. The point of the QB sneak is not that it's secretive, not that it's a sneaky play. Teams know it's coming, and you typically can't stop it. And you don't have so yeah, that was a little bit frustrating to see, obviously. And then obviously Justin Fields changes the play. He pitches it to Breece Hall, who's 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage. So on fourth and a short yard, they pitch the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and then Breece Hall gets stuffed. And on the front side of that block, even though Arian Smith, I give him credit at Georgia for the effort he put in as a blocker, he's still 180 pounds. He whiffed on a block because him and Lazard's feet kind of got tied up a little bit and didn't really match the hips well, or match the block well with his hips. But he gets blown up, and then Breece Hall is tackled for a loss. It's how does Fields change the play into that. So there's still some, again, like I think Fields was good, but it's all relative to expectations. But there's still some misses there. That checking out of that quarterback sneak to pitch the ball 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage on a crack toss, not great. And then Braylon Allen coming out there on Twitter is just not the right time to do that. So thoughts I guess on Braylon Allen, and then whatever else I commented on. I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I know you just posted the clip of that play like an hour ago or something, and I mean, they show the back end view on the replay during the game, and I remember seeing like, why. I feel like that's as good as you can ask for on 4th and 1 for a sneak. So that was questionable, but yeah, I think Fields was solid overall. You know, it was. I think for a quarterback, this is about as good as you could do in setting a guy up. I mean, the pass protection was perfect pretty much, and you know, we'll see how they can maintain this, because Trey Hendrickson was playing hurt and then he left, and without him this Bengals defensive line is probably the worst in the league, but it's still an NFL defensive line, and I mean, he was barely even pressured in this game, so it wasn't the hardest job in the world. He had to execute. There were open throws, but you know, he gave a solid game manager performance. This is what I thought he was going to do more consistently this year, as opposed to, you know, he's had games this year where he was just a total liability. But I do especially credit that 4th down throw to Tyler Johnson, standing in there and putting touch on that one. That was, I think, his best play of the year. Best throw. I know he had the Miami 4th down scramble, but best throw. So
even on that one, you actually look at the process of that. So that's a spot concept. You read the flat first on that play, and the flat was open, and then and the only reason I could think is because there's a blitzing corner off of that edge, and maybe he saw the blitzing corner and said, okay, I can't angle this ball around him, I can't adjust my arm slot and get it around him, so that's why he pulled the trigger on Tyler Johnson. But obviously a great play. But initially I watched him like, dude, the flat is open, but then the corner is blitzing. So yeah, that was a good one. There's a few good ones. The dagger concept, he hit Tyler Johnson, who I think, like, credit to Tyler Johnson. You know, I know he's had a drop or two, but he's actually been like decent this year for the Jets, considering expectations. But sorry to interrupt you, but continue with Fields.
Oh, I mean, I think Tyler Johnson's kind of been like what I thought Josh Reynolds was going to be, like that complimentary guy who you don't see him often, but he usually catches it when it comes his way, makes some timely plays. But I actually just pulled up the video of that touchdown because I wanted to see what you're talking about. Yeah, he does have Mason Taylor there in the flat.
I'm assuming, again, and that's his first read on the spot.
Kind of similar to the controversial play from a couple weeks ago.
That's his first read in the flat right there, no doubt. It's just, okay, if that corner's blitzing, he saw the flash of whatever the Bengals were wearing, white, I guess. Flash of Bengals white, and he didn't want to throw that ball in there because he thought it was going to be deflected. I understand it. If he skipped it, I don't. And there's still a few plays where I watch, I'm like, okay, the one is open. The offensive line did give him all day, and there was still quite a few throws he's a little bit late on. That Arian Smith play on that deep like hinge route, like 20-yard hinge route, he could have got a little bit more yak there if Justin Fields was earlier. There was a throw to Lazard that he missed where he could have hit Lazard. There was a few plays where I was like, okay, he's still Justin Fieldsing this type of, this a little bit, but overall, like he was more accurate. I think he's more decisive, a little bit more quick to get to the check down, made that big throw to Tyler Johnson. The play, and I think the play that's almost the nicest, was a 2-point conversion. If and I put this on, well, it's going to go on Twitter. I schedule most of my tweets the next day, so I'm still tweeting right now, but I'm not actually tweeting. The throw to Isaiah Davis on the 2-point conversion, if that was Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, that's getting talked up a lot more. ESPN highlights, all that stuff. The dude is falling over and is not like parallel to the ground, but he's on his way to the ground and sidearms a ball in there to Isaiah Davis, who makes hell of a catch. That play is talked about more. So I definitely give Fields credit, bouncing back from what the comments were this week. Got vulnerable, talking about crying in the closet. I thought he had a solid game, and I'm going to put it up there and say it's an absolutely astonishing game, A+, all this stuff. No, I'm not, because there are still a few plays where I have questions about his process. But again, I feel like I'm, when people want us to be positive or too negative, now people just want to be too positive or be positive on being negative. I'm just always going to tell you exactly what I see. And I thought it was like a B overall game for Fields, but relative to expectations, bravo in kind of a short way to, sum it up.
Yeah, and I do still admire the, resolve mentally that it takes to have a game like that. Just from, obviously Fields isn't suddenly a franchise quarterback or anything, but it is games like this that kind of remind you what it takes to get to that level, and how even, the worst starters, NFL players, whatever it may be, even the bottom of that barrel still has such special ability and kind of fortitude to play through that. Because like I can't imagine that sort of pressure. Like, you got benched, you were not supposed to play this week, and then you get thrust back out there because an injury. Your owner, who signs your paychecks, told everyone that any coach would be winless if they had a quarterback like you, and now you got to go out there and play on the road and without Garrett Wilson, and to play like that, which, not the greatest game of all time, but more than good enough to win a game, is I think that's really admirable, regardless of, what we saw before this, what happens after. I think just seeing that, it definitely reminds you like what it takes to play at that level.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we can be fair, right? Like, I don't think if he plays bad, it has to be the worst game ever. I don't think if he plays good, it has to be the best game ever. I thought it was a solid game from our quarterback. And again, I'll go through the film review and I'll show all those plays for the people who subscribe for, $3 a month or $5 to the full website. But we'll talk about all of it. And we'll get to the rest of the offensive line too. I thought they were good. I thought they schemed up some stuff well. Give Tanner Engstrand credit. You saw the jet sweep to Isaiah Williams that we haven't seen in a little bit, with like the jet sweeps and that type of stuff. There's at least a few screens in there. The last few weeks, I think people, I say this all the time, people say RPO and read option and act like they're the same thing. They're completely different. I don't want Justin Fields doing RPOs. I don't think he processes quick enough. Read option, I'm okay with. But even more specifically, just because even read option, Fields can bungle up sometimes. I think the quarterback designed quarterback runs are better. And they've been doing more of those the last few weeks. Was it you who put out the stat about like Max Mitchell when it comes to the game, like the Jets never pass it? Max Mitchell came into the game in this game. They actually passed it at least one or two times. I noticed with Max Mitchell in the field. So good job changing up tendencies. Yep. You actually had play action passes from under center, which I don't think they ran much under center at all. But when they did, I don't remember them passing a lot, and they actually passed a little bit under center this week. So good job by Engstrand, changing it up a little bit and adding some of those things to his game. There's still some like little problems that I see with the offense, again, being very nitpicky, but you're watching the offense, you see a lot of guys end up in the same kind of 5-yard window, which really like affects the spacing of plays and things like that. But overall, Engstrand, stock up in this game. At first, I think his track was started off pretty high, especially the Pittsburgh game, and then since that point, he's kind of dropped down. But the last few weeks, I think he's been giving the offense a better shot, and specifically this game, I think this is the best game he's coached since week one. And obviously, it's easy to say that just because of the score and the output they put out there. But when you actually look at it, and again, the things I mentioned with this, some of the tendency breakers they were doing, regardless of the score, I think this is one of the better games he's coached. So kudos to him.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy to evaluate because obviously he's dealing with some obstacles in terms of receiver talent, the quarterback most obviously. But it can be difficult to evaluate the coach because you want to look at how many points did they score, how many yards, and all of that. But when you see guys on film running open and they're just not getting hit,
yes,
that doesn't fall as much on the offensive coordinator. But at the same time, the Jets did go 7 straight games without or 6 straight games without a first half touchdown until this one. So obviously he should share some responsibility for that. And I think in some areas there are things to improve or were going into this game. The predictability, like you said, we all know they're a run first team and that's what they're built to be. But I feel like at times it's been in a predictable sort of way. I think there are ways to be run heavy while still being unpredictable. And he did a better job of that in this game. They had drives where they were pass heavy. They had drives where there were a few where they alternated play after play. I think second to last touchdown drive they had was like alternating pass run the entire drive. So there were a lot of instances like that throughout the game that I think he really did a much better job mixing it up. And they seemed more prepared, from start to finish. They were moving the ball pretty well. The penalties were down. So, yeah, I think he trended up in this game, and you want to see more of this throughout the season. Obviously, the points and yards were there this time, they're not always going to have this many, but if the trends that we saw in this game continue, I think it builds confidence in him being the guy who inherits rookie quarterback next year.
Yeah, and I'm gonna hit the chat in a second. I just want to I guess we can wrap up the offense a little bit again. Isaiah Davis, awesome catch, awesome blocks on third down, awesome 50-yard run. Breece Hall was great in this game as well. The receivers, again, credit to Tyler Johnson, Isaiah Williams, as David mentions here, had some juice, and give him credit. Obviously, some of the decisions he made, the punt return, not letting it bounce, the kick return that you got on him for that everybody kind of piggyback off of. The lack of explosion, but this game he looked explosive. He had the jet sweep. He had a couple of catches, so credit to him. The rest of the receiver room didn't really do anything. I will give credit to Lazard. There was actually quite a few good Lazard blocks in this game, so I do want to credit him with that. And then talking about the tight ends, man, Ruckert had a few good plays. I know on one of the later plays, like third or fourth down, he was one-on-one with a DN. And he stood up against the DN for a good 2.5 seconds before the DN started to rush in. So good job by Ruckert. He also had that one catch on I believe it was a fourth down on that wide leak play on the same play that Lions used to beat us in 2022. Ruckert did good there. And then, dude, Mason Taylor, man, I know the stat line's only like 5 for 35, but the first catch was contested over the middle with a linebacker on his back. He had the other catch on, was it 3rd and 2 on that one play in the red zone in the last drive where he turns up the field and gets the first down, absorbs a hit, doesn't drop the ball. Then he mosses the guy on the Breece Hall pass. And then you also had the one play. What was the exact run play? I forget. I put it up on Twitter. It's going up on Twitter eventually. But he has a combo block with Ruckert and then drives the dude like 5-6 yards down the field and pancakes him. So Mason Taylor looks very legit. He looks like he's the Jets tight end 1 going forward. So awesome to see from the skill position guys, specifically, I would say Ruckert, Mason Taylor, Tyler Johnson, and then Isaiah Williams in terms of the receivers and tight ends. We obviously already hit on the running backs.
Yeah, I love the way that Taylor has played this season. I know the stats aren't really there, but we know guys aren't going to get big receiving stats in this offense, but he catches the majority of what's thrown his way. What is he? Let me see what he's got. He's got 242 through 8 games. So he's on pace for about 500 yards. Hopefully he could throw a few more touchdowns in there. But yeah,
500 yards, take it.
Just within the opportunities he's gotten, he's caught most of what's catchable, and a lot of those have been contested, difficult balls. So, and some of them have been more subtle because they're only like 5-yard catches and not touchdowns or anything. But he's made some critical, drive extending type receptions, and like you said, blocking, we're seeing some signs of improvement. So I think you feel really good about that as a 2nd round pick moving forward.
Yeah, no, I've been really thrilled with his play over recent weeks, and he had one like maybe quasi drop in this game where Fields like lasered it to him. It was kind of off target, his hands hit it, but not gonna kill him there. But yeah, no, awesome to see from the offense again, like. And the point you made with like, hey, winning games shows that this is the type of staff or team to build around a quarterback. Like I think the team is. I think the roster is, and it's part of why the 0-7 start was so disappointing, because this isn't the 2020 Jets. Like they have all pros and good players all around the field. Look at the offensive line. Look at what they've done in a few of these games with all the 1st round picks: Mason Taylor, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall. And all the guys on defense. So that's when people are like, oh, we expected to lose this year. It's like, I didn't expect to lose like this, like getting blown out in most games and be 0-7. Like this team has undeniable talent on it. But I guess kind of getting back to some of the talent. Hello from Europe. Hello, Gang Green. What's up, Joe? Do you trade Breece Hall next week? Give me both sides. I'm assuming both sides, like mine and Nania's sides. So my stance kind of on this has been, and we'll see what happens. The trade deadline is it week 9? Is it week 10? I don't I guess it's
after this coming week, the Tuesday after this.
Yeah. Tuesday. Okay. So
a week from today. Yeah.
My stance with Breece Hall is basically to make it short and not have to talk in circles for 30 minutes. I think it's a thing where if he's willing to come back to the Jets and the Jets are approach him at a price and he's willing to come back for 10, 11, 12 million dollars a year and they can sign him for a 2-year, $22 million contract, then you don't trade him because that's a piece you could build around, the rookie quarterback coming in. If they go to him and he says, no, screw that, you guys suck, I want $17 million and I'm miserable here, then you trade him, right? Like that's kind of where I'm at. I don't think he's a deal breaker for the rest of the season for the Jets. So I kind of think it's a thing where if you plan on extending him, then extend him. If not, then trade him for what you can get. Because I don't think you get a comp pick with him walking in free agency when you have like $80 million in cap space. So that's kind of where I stand. Now, I would just trade him for like a 7th round pick. But if he says, no, I'm absolutely not resigning with you guys, and the team offers a 5th and a 7th or a 5th and a 6th, then, I think you take it because I'd rather get something than for nothing. But I'm almost leaning more towards hopefully Breece Hall, for whatever reason, wants to be here, and they can approach him. They can sign him to a 2-year, $22 million deal. Like that's what I'm leaning towards wanting to happen. But if he's not willing to play here, then it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up. I just feel like they're not going to be very inclined to do that with Braylon Allen out. And I know Isaiah Davis just had a big game, but they haven't really wanted to use him too much, which, I think we both would disagree with. But, last couple of games before this one, they pretty much entirely leaned on Hall. So I don't think they're super confident in the offense without him. And I don't think they're embracing tanking or anything like that, especially now that they've got a win here. So I just don't feel like they're going to be inclined to do it regardless of the future, because I think they still care about these next 9 games here and the product they're putting on the field and trying to win games. And just based on the usage of their other running backs, I don't think they're super confident in operating without Breece Hall and Braylon Allen for the rest of the season.
So trade deadline comes up or it passes. It's Tuesday at 4:00. Which Jets are traded and about for what if you had to guess? Like, is the over under 1.5 for you then? Seemingly, like if Breece Hall's not going, is like, would you put it at 1.5 as the over under?
I think that's a good over under. I would probably say under. I feel like usually we overvalue what's going to happen or over predict what's going to happen at the trade deadline. I would say like one of Quincy or Lazard. I don't know if I see both, but I think there will be one MC2 of those types of. Yeah, that maybe 2 out of those 3 would put it over the 1.5. I don't know. I don't know if I see that whole fire sale coming, because I don't know. I just think they care about winning games right now, even if fans might, obviously we know they're not making the playoffs, but I think we'll see one of those.
Not yet. There's a chance. 10-7 still in the books.
They got it. They got the win right in time to keep that dream alive.
Yeah. So now with that, like with the Carter thing, though, the only thing is like, okay, Brownlee's been playing awesome. His first game was really good. Third game was very good. Second game a little bit iffy. Got pancaked a few times, but he's been awesome. So I don't think they're going to move him out of the slot. I know Michael Carter was healthy this game. I don't know how much did he play. I didn't even really notice.
Yeah, I was just looking that up because I wanted to speak on it more, but I forgot like how many snaps he played. But that
I remember
looking at it now is because he didn't really play. He played 6 snaps in this game.
6 snaps.
Brownlee 40. So honestly, that would you consider and signal. Right there.
This is obviously I guess it's a biased question. Not biased question. I know how I feel about it. Me personally, I would move Michael. He played safety at Duke, right? Like, why not move him to safety for Andre Cisco or Malachi Moore, who, again, I think it's easy to gas guys up who fans are gassing up, or to shit on guys fans are shitting on, just to stay kind of with the status quo and not move against the grain. But that's not necessarily what I want to do. I think Malachi Moore by fans has been overrated. I don't think he's been very good in coverage since he's been here. He's been missing tackles. I mean, he didn't do it at Alabama. He's been making some plays in the run game, but in this game, he got outflanked to the sideline it was a play action. He got beat badly to the sideline because he bit so hard. He got roasted multiple times in the Bucs game. Even last game, people said he was good, but I don't know if you remember that cover 3 play where he was in the middle safety, and then Bryce Young throws the deep over route, and he broke it up. But if you actually go back and watch that play, he was so late to match that he's lucky that Bryce Young had to step it up and float that ball up there. If not, And even if not, if the receiver just catches it cleanly, he's beat there badly. So I don't think Malachi Moore has been great, to be completely transparent. This game, 3 missed tackles, some blunders in coverage. I would move Michael Carter to safety for either one of Cisco or Moore. Now, I'd rather it be Cisco because Cisco's not going to be here. Let Moore take his rookie lumps. Hopefully he improves. But why not move him to safety? Because both of those guys have been atrocious, in my opinion, or bad, specifically Cisco. So I would move Michael Carter to see, hey, he's on I know if they get rid of him, they have some dead money coming, but if he could be an effective safety, why is it Michael Carter the second your safety next year? Like I think I'm willing to try it with him.
Yeah, I mean, that could be a worthwhile move because he's still under contract, so you're potentially filling one of your holes that you're going to have to address next year. And Moore could also emerge to become that solution, but like you said, hasn't exactly shown it so far, and it's early for a 4th round pick, right? 4th round. So yeah, I could see that. If they're not going to be able to trade him or get anything worthwhile, then it's better than using him for 6 snaps, I guess. What did you make of Jamie Sherwood being benched for the first quarter of this game?
I'm assuming it was something disciplinary because he had probably his best game of the season last week. Again, I think people say the last 2 weeks he's been good. The week before that, I'm not going to say he was good. I'm sorry, I can't. Last week he was fine, so I don't think it was a thing where he got benched because of the play. I think he got benched because maybe something like he was late to a meeting or something. I don't know exactly what happened there. And then Maui Noah gets a concussion, so he ends up coming in anyway. The thing I will say, and it kind of relates to the trade deadline, in my mind, it's like 2.5 is the over under. I think Quincy and one of I think probably Michael Carter the second's gone. But I think Quincy's most like if I had to put one guy who I think is going to trade, it's Quincy Williams. He had some flash plays in this game. Like, he had the coverage play on Jamar Chase. He had he had the tackle for loss on a toss, but Quincy and Sherwood were awful in this game at times with their run fits and guessing and allowing runs to hit the 3rd level without any contention. So they were both, again, Quincy minus the flashes, which the flashes are nice, but I'd rather take the guy who's not flashy and is more consistent down by down. I could say not a good game for either one of Quincy and Sherwood. They look lost quite a bit in this game, so I was not impressed with either one of those guys really.
Yeah, I mean, defensively, like when you look back at this, I know, Flacco's red hot and he gets decent numbers at the end here, but you hold T. Higgins did not catch a ball outside of that touchdown. Jamar Chase was targeted 19 times, only got 91 yards out of that. So overall, the pass defense, besides the fact that they had no pass rush, was not as bad as it could have been. It's really the fact that they just got stomped on the ground. That was the main defensive issue. I mean, you give up about 8 yards a carry. It's a major, major problem, regardless of what your pass defense does. So it really came down to that with the defense, which, they were improving recently, but this was a major step back with the run defense. And it really felt like the linebackers, like you said, were a big part of that. But even the whole defensive line was getting pushed around a lot by the Bengals offensive line, which is not known as a great unit at running the ball. So that was concerning.
Yeah. Quincy got beat for this touchdown too. He was not again, he had the tackle for loss, he had the pass deflection on Chase, but overall, you're saying positive or negative game for Quincy. I would say it's definitely in the negative just because of how bad some of the run fits were and the guesses. Same thing for Sherwood, just not great. Like you said, the defensive line was getting pushed around. Q had to play late, but I would say overall not great in this game. Will McDonald didn't really show up in this game. Even Jay, I know we had that sack, but still, it was on a stunt. And the coverage was so good that he had time to get there. JJ, I think he got blocked a little bit more by he got blocked by some tight ends in this game. Didn't really look great for JJ in this game. I think Harrison Phillips was probably their best defensive lineman. Linebackers didn't look good. Maui Noah, when he came in, didn't look good. The safeties were missing tackles. So everything from the interior defensive line up was all bad. But give credit to the secondary in terms of the corners, man. Chase beat him a few times. Higgins beat Azareye'h Thomas on that one touchdown where, it was 99% perfect from Azareye'h Thomas. Maybe just don't look for the ball as late as he did, but he had quite a few plays on Chase one-on-one in on big downs, 3rd and 9, 3rd and 7, stuff like that, where he singled up with Chase. He handled him. So Azareye'h Thomas, very, very, and again, I know he got beat a few times, but overall, a very, very good debut for him. Stevens, that was a guy, I'm not going to say, I don't think people associate me with Stevens, like saying, Blewett thinks he's okay. And I haven't been getting that over recent weeks, but that was one I defended it in the offseason, that signing. And the last 4 or 5 weeks, Michael, he's out, if not played up to the contract, even outplayed that contract. Let's be real. He's been good. And then Brownlee, man. Brownlee was awesome in this game as well. Pass breakup at the end of the game. There was another play where I don't know if it was a coverage sack or not, but he jammed the ever-living shit out of, I think it was T. Higgins in the slot. So credit to the corners, man. They were all really, really good in this game. So I was definitely happy with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, even though it's an overall bad defensive performance, you look at the pass numbers, especially with the wide receivers versus what you think could have happened without Sauce playing in this game, and that's that's enough to win a game right there. And the run defense let them down in this one, but I think, like you said, I think Stevens' first 3 games were rough, but he's flipped a switch since then, and I think. 5 games now, he's been really strong for them, definitely playing up to that contract. So we'll see how we can maintain that the rest of the year. Cornerback is really up and down. I mean, you see how quickly he went from what he was doing against Pittsburgh to what he's doing now, and that's kind of been the theme for his career. So we'll see what this body of work looks like for him at the end of the season. But yeah, last 5 games here, he's definitely been what I think they projected they were going to get when they signed him to that contract.
Yeah, no, and I know some of the PFF numbers and all that stuff. Like, he's one of the top corners in the NFL now over recent weeks, not even just for number 2. So he's been playing like a very, very good number 2. And typically those guys get more than $12 million, So the unfortunate thing for him is I think Jets fans kind of, they build their opinions quickly of players. So the fact that the first 2-3 games he was awful, he's always going to be awful to Jets fans. When in reality, he's been just as good as he was bad in those first 3 weeks over the last 5. So credit to him. And again, Azareye'h Thomas at times, man, like, even though getting beat by some of those guys, he was so damn close to making a play. The Jamar Chase play deep down the sideline where he tips the ball up and then he almost gets the pick. He was very, very good. So I'm thrilled with the play of those guys, really. And I am a stickler for corners. So they were awesome. Really nice to see. But I'm gonna go to the chat a little bit. McNamara, I know Folk obviously hasn't. When's the last time Folk? I'm gonna knock on wood. I don't know when the last time Folk has missed a kick, but it was definitely obviously last year. So he's been amazing. McNamara, by the numbers, and I said this last week, he may be the best punter in the NFL. I said at the minimum, bottom or top 5. Have you done anything on him recently in terms of like where does he actually kind of rank among the best punters in terms of like hang time and in the 20 and all that stuff? Because if there's one person to ask this question, it would be you. So
yeah, he's up there. I mean, net punting, hang time, all pretty much anything you look at, he's been hovering that top 3 to 5 all year. So I mean, he really looked the part in the preseason. And when you see that in the preseason, you feel like, okay, that should translate, because we're not talking about D tackles against backup guards here. You're kicking the ball, so it should translate. And it has so far. I'm just surprised. Like he was on the Bengals last year and they cut him for the guy that they have now. I'm just surprised that he didn't land on a team because he looked really good in the preseason.
Yeah, right. Like, why does it not translate? Is it like a pressure thing for these guys too? I'm sure a lot of it with kicking is. I guess punting can be as well, because like, I'll be honest, like after Braden Mann's draft and I'm watching him boom punts on YouTube, I'm like, this guy's going to be excellent. And he sucked with the Jets. Like what is it? Like, you're kicking a ball. I get it's the pressure for field goal kickers because there's 80,000 people with 70,000, 60,000 of them rooting for you to miss the kick. It's a lot of pressure. But punting? Like, hey, I guess it is what it is.
I mean, I don't know. I guess like it could be, free throw shooting in basketball. Like that's a very consistent, controlled thing. There might be guys who can make all their free throws in practice, but then go out there in a game and they'll hit like 40% of them. So, punting, I guess maybe it could be the same thing, even though it's a consistent same motion that you're doing. Maybe there's just something about being in front of people that alters their consistency and focus in executing it. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know, but McNamara is a stud for sure.
Clemens bringing up, Alex bringing up Clemens. I can say Clemens last few weeks at least looks like a rosterable NFL player. Is that okay to say? Like, am I going to get shot now?
I noticed him. I noticed him in the backfield more than any other Jets player in this game.
Yeah,
I will say that.
I'll give him credit if he can cut out the penalties and keep playing the way he has been. Then DN 4 or 5, like okay, like I'll take it for Clemens considering our expectations of him and all that stuff. But Meatball Parm, what is up? Good morning. David asked, who do you think realistically is gone by the deadline? If I had to put my money on it, it's going to be Michael Carter II and Quincy would be the ones who are gone. I could see Quincy going to the Niners with their injury to Fred Warner, and then MC2. I could see whatever I don't know who the Falcons slot corner is right now, but maybe something like that. Just because he's making a decent amount of money. He had a few bad games, but he still has a pretty good reputation around the league, I'm sure. But you're not taking Brownlee out. I can't see how you take Brownlee out at this point. So unless the plan is to play him at safety, I would trade Michael Carter II. Let's see. We have to be real about the offense, though. We look good because the Bengals have the worst defense in football. Happy for the win, but I get that 100%. No doubt, Alex. But I could say the same thing. Like, hey, listen, we've been in the absolute doldrums the last few weeks. The Cowboys had a shitty defense, and we put up like 6 points against them, right, or whatever it was before garbage time. And then the Panthers don't have a good defense, and we put up 6 points versus them. So we take steps in the right direction with putting up points versus a bad defense. That's what they were supposed to do, and they did it. So give them their credit. Trust me, I watched the film already. The review is coming out in a few hours. There were quite a few plays where guys were running wide open because the Bengals are awful at defense. But still, at least we put up points first time where we didn't versus the Cowboys or the Panthers is kind of the point. So got to take steps.
I mean, it's worth considering that in the sense that, in terms of the Bengals being bad, like, it matters in the sense that they're not going to be this good consistently. Cleveland's coming up. They still got to play New England. They'll play some team. Most teams will be better than the Bengals, but yeah, like you said, I mean, this is just the beginning of them doing what they were supposed to do this season, which isn't to win a ton of games, but it's kind of just like meet the bar of competitiveness that's expected. And, when they were playing the Cowboys and Panthers and couldn't put up touchdowns against them, being how terrible they are defensively, that's just not what they were expected to do this year, but the more they do have games like this where it's like, okay, you're a competitive NFL team, you're on the verge, and we could see you taking a leap off of this, then that's something you could build upon going into next season. Even if it doesn't mean they're an amazing team right now, this is just showing that they're competent with what they have and they can build upon it going forward. So the more they have games like this, then the more you could feel like this is a viable foundation to build upon. Mm-hmm. So I think that's why it still is worth giving them some credit for, even if the Bengals definitely are a really weak defensive team.
Mm-hmm. Alex says Jason Brownlee was a steal. Love that trade in hindsight. As soon as it happened, I watched him. I'm like, how do you dump this guy for a 6th to a 7th round?
The Titans just dumped another corner to the McCreary to the Rams, who I think is pretty solid. So they might just be outright tanking at this point, which I don't know why. They have a quarterback.
Yeah,
but
I know. But yeah, they got him for a good price. That 4th round pick of Arian Smith looks even worse based on what, though? Like, it looks even worse because of what? He had to catch this game. He had to catch on a deep hinge route. Good route, attack the blind spot. I think, and like realistically with Arian Smith, one, he's a rookie. I think a part of his problem is this offense takes little to no deep shots, or at least over the first 7-8 weeks. Arian Smith is a guy who is built for deep shots. So you have an offense that's not really suited to him for how they're playing right now. So I don't see how he's supposed to necessarily succeed. And if you actually look at some of the separation numbers, Aaron, I'm not saying he's up there, but he actually has some decent separation numbers. So I would give Arian Smith more time, and then maybe with a quarterback next year and a different offense, built around a rookie quarterback, maybe he'll thrive a little bit more. I would say just take it easy on him because he has not been put in a position to thrive. But this game, he had one catch, maybe one catch. I don't know if he had any more than that. I know he had one at least, but I would cool on Arian Smith. Like how is he going to succeed in this offense? But Lenser Spavin, maybe. I love Brees in a fantastic game, but am I crazy for feeling like it's still clear how much less explosive he is now? He looked pretty explosive this game. That reacceleration up the sideline on his touchdown run was definitely awesome. Does he look like a rookie year Brees? I would say no still.
Yeah, I feel like top speed explosion. There were a couple plays this year. Like, was it that one against the Cowboys where he broke a bunch of tackles, but it was a great run, but I still also feel like 2022, he hits top gear and takes it to the house. So yeah, I feel like maybe that element has decreased a little bit, and that lowers his ceiling from when I thought he could be, maybe the best running back in the league. But I feel like he's had a solid season. The first game was great. He kind of slowed down a little bit after that. But these last 3-4 games, I feel like he's been pretty consistently good in terms of creating as a runner and making the most of his receiving chances. So I feel like this has been definitely an improvement off of last year.
This game was good. The Cowboys game was good. Panthers game not so good, but a lot of teams are also putting 7-8 guys in the box, against the Jets. So it is hard to see some lanes open up. I think he's been plus average running back. How do you quantify it? I say that all the time, but maybe in that 10, 11, 12, 13 type range of running backs in the league, which I think if he's willing to play for $10, $11 million a year, then I'm willing. I would be willing to do that. Devin asked if someone calls, which last week it was trade Sauce, trade Q. It's okay. And I brought up the Peter Griffin thing where okay, the mystery box or the boat. There could be a boat in the mystery box. It's why are we trading these guys for first round picks we hope are as good as these guys? And Q, I guess I can entertain it because he's 27 years old, but I still think Q is going to be a Pro Bowl to elite level player for at least another 3, 4, 5 years. So I would still keep him on the team. But as Devin asked here, Michael, if a team calls about Q, what would it need to start at for you to even start to list? I'm not saying your ideal trade package, but at what point do you say, okay, you have at least piqued my interest, let's have a conversation?
Something above a first rounder. I was thinking first, third. I mean, I don't know if that sounds overly optimistic from a Jets fan perspective. Maybe other teams would look at it that's absurd to give up for Quinn Williams. But for me, I just look at it from the perspective you said. If you get a first round pick for him, then it's probably not going to be the third pick, which is where he was drafted and as I think played up to, or at least close to that.
It's going to be a late first from a team who wants to compete.
Yeah, exactly. And then the odds of you getting a Quinn Williams out of that are just not very good. And I know there are different aspects, it's a younger player, you're unloading the contract and all of that. But at the end of the day, this is a team with one win that needs to get some good players and win some games here. So trading your best one just isn't a good part of that. So I feel like a first and third, maybe you start thinking, but I don't know. I don't feel inclined to think about trading players like that when you're in this position.
Yeah, a guy you could build around. And with the Jets roster too, again, just remember that the Commanders last year were supposed to be the worst team in the NFL, second worst, third worst to get a quarterback, and they make the conference championship game. I think this team, if you just compare it to even the Commanders team, I think this team has more talent. That team made the NFC Championship last year. I'm not saying I expect that from the Jets, but if they were to land their quarterback next year and he's actually solid in his rookie year, I could see the Jets winning 8, 9, 10 games next year with this roster, especially another $80 million to spend, and you get some guys. So I don't think this is a tear it down rebuild where the Jets are just completely ass. If they didn't have Sauce, if they didn't have Garrett, and Q was the only guy who was legitimately a Pro Bowler on the team, then okay, I understand. But you have Sauce, you have Garrett, you have some players on this team, you have a bunch of first round picks. So I'm not just getting rid of Q because I think the Jets could turn this around quickly if Aaron Glenn, and hopefully this is the start of pulling his head out of his own ass. Hopefully he fully pulls his head out of his own ass. He could be a good coach for the Jets, and I think they could win a few games next year with a good quarterback. So, I'm not just jumping Q, but I think I said the same exact thing last week, like a first and a third, a fourth and a fourth, and maybe a young player. Then we can start talking about Q. But people are, I think the report this week was a second round pick. And I tweeted out that would be absolute incompetency from the Jets to trade a Q for a second round pick. You're just not going to get a player as good as him, So,
and I think what you said, what you alluded to, is what makes the Jets unique for a 1-7 team that might pick first overall. There are building blocks with this team. They're not so far off to where you're like, okay, we need a quantity of needs to be filled, so let's dump the one or two guys we have and just totally tear it down so we could build from the ground up because we're not close enough. Like the Jets have people, and they're 1-7 for various reasons, and I think it's because they're hurting in the most important spots. They don't have a quarterback. Their head coach is inexperienced and going through those growing pains. We'll see. I mean, we'll see if those are growing pains or if he's just bad. I think that's still TBD, but it comes down to quarterback, coaching, edge depth, things like that. They're hurting in very important spots, but the quantity across the roster of pieces that they have is relatively really good for a team in this spot. When you have Sauce, you have Garrett, you have Quinn, and all of these people, let's add Mason Taylor to that. Let's add Armand Membu. So they have pieces, the quantity of building blocks. So I don't think they're so far off to where you start selling those. You should be trying to add to it and finish those last few holes that need to be filled to make up that gap that separates them from being a playoff team. So that's why I don't know if I fully see them going fire sale mode with definitely not these top guys on the roster.
And again, like you said, with head coach, they've been lacking head coach quarterback. Let's just, ultimate faith, Aaron Glenn somehow turns it around and he's a decent to solid head coach. You have that for next year. Hopefully you add a quarterback and maybe he's, not starting for the first half of the year or whatever, but maybe he comes in and he's good. And then you have enough money in picks, $80 million. Can you grab a safety, a linebacker, a D end, tight end 2 and receiver 2 in this free agency? And then past that, like depth, I get it, but with the money they have, and then if Glenn does turn around, you add a quarterback to this team again, 8-9 wins next year is not crazy. It's not crazy. It wouldn't be even crazy this year if they had a good quarterback. Let's just be realistic, so you could turn around very quickly in the NFL, and we've seen that quite a few times. So I'm not just getting rid of Q to get rid of Q. What if I offered you a mystery box? So that's the point. Like, it's just, trade these guys for a first round pick. It's, what is the chance that guy's going to be as good? What is up, Sneakers to Boots? I haven't seen in a while. I know I do some wild times, 10 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock in the morning. It kind of fluctuates. It's pretty crazy, but my schedule is crazy. But going back to the offensive line, Membu's been good overall. I would say some up and down, but you expect that from a rookie, but overall good. I think Tippmann has looked, there's some plays that he has still where he whiffs. He had a big whiff in the run game in this game, but overall he's been a solid right guard, right? I would say he probably slowed down from his really good start. I think he looks probably like, and maybe you'll see it differently. Obviously, we watch so many players and stuff, but I think he's similar level player at guard as he is a center. I think he's a solid player at either one of those spots. I don't think he's a great player. Myers has been better than we expected, all that stuff. But the main question I want to ask you is about the two tackles. Thoughts on Membu so far? And then I know Fashion had a game where he had 0 pressure, 0 hits, all that stuff. But what's your concern level with him while also recognizing that, hey, he's still he only has like 12, 13 starts as a left tackle. He's only a second-year player, all that stuff. But some concerns, obviously, over the last few weeks.
Yeah, I would say a little concerning because before this game, he was one of the leaders in the league. I mean, he still is. It was only one game. One of the leaders in terms of pressures allowed this season. And that stat can be misleading because how many would he allow if an average quarterback was back there instead of Justin Fields, who's creating a lot of pressure opportunities that other quarterbacks wouldn't? And Tyrod does the same thing, even if not to the same extent. So that makes it harder to evaluate offensive line metrics, compare them to other players. But even outside of that, just watching him, it does, and you're watching the film, it feels like he's pretty consistently getting beat. And as you've shown in your breakdowns, it's through some consistent technical issues that are just kind of repeating themselves. And you wonder, is this something he's incapable of fixing? Is it something he needs to wait till the offseason to really, hone in on and fix? And if so, why didn't it happen last offseason? Because you talked about some of the things with his punch and how he needs to mix it up on his film review last year. So it's definitely concerning, but this game was a reminder of who he could be. And I know they weren't playing the Eagles or anything like that, or the Broncos, but it was still a dominant performance from him. There was really no edge pressure to speak of for the Bengals. So we'll see, because it's still, 13 starts that he has at left tackle now. I think 5 last year, and this was 8 this season. So, and he was a young rookie. So yeah, it could definitely just be taking in some time to hit his peak. And we're comparing him to the guy on the other side in Membu, who's been kind of an outlier in how quickly he's gotten off to a fast start. I think he's blown my expectations away just by being good, and we saw that from the beginning, facing TJ Watt in the first game and just holding his own. And that was a sign of things to come, because I think he's been pretty consistently an above average to good starting right tackle, which for a rookie, especially a 21-year-old rookie, is really impressive to start out. So yeah, I think patience is necessary with Fashanu, but you also would like to see him sustain the progress that he started to show in this game. You want to see something, and that's really the theme with the Jets as a whole. You want to see sustained improvement. The blind faith can only go so far. Like that was the case with Aaron Glenn going into this game. People want to be patient and absolve him of criticism from those 7 games, but also, what were the positives to speak of? There really weren't many, but with a game like this, and you stack these up.
Can I correct you? And I can say there were 0. I think there were, and I'm not trying to be dick, but I think there were 0 positives to go off of.
I agree.
Like nothing. There wasn't hype on the sideline, guys trying really hard. We saw Sherwood completely low foot on the Cowboys play to the tight end, made a mess of himself in the media. The in-game decisions were awful. Going at the media for no reason, so strong in his conviction that Brian Costello, how could you ask the question if we're going to bench Justin Fields to only a half later then benching Justin Fields? It's like, what are you doing, dude? So, even this last week.
I still feel like even after this game, I know that he said, that Fields doesn't deserve the criticism that he gets. And I'm like, I get he's defending the player and all that, but I don't know. I feel like 3 sub 50-yard games from a starting quarterback kind of deserves some criticism.
Well, the criticism for who though? Your owner? Like your owner was the major criticism last week. Right. Like that's the reason. And then does Woody Johnson have some do you think it was self-awareness by him to send Christopher Johnson in there to give Glenn the game ball? I legitimately think that he was like, yeah, after last week, I don't think I can go in there. I'm being serious. I really don't think he caught that.
Definitely.
He's like, I can't do it, because then it's going to be, Aaron Glenn's hugging, Justin Fields, and Woody's right there next to him. Like, hey, good game, Justin. It's like, dude, you just said it'd be nice if we can complete a pass. So I guess good by him to recognize that he shouldn't go into the locker room. But of course, that's just the messiest Jet stuff. Like that's the reason that people look at us like a circus, because that happens. Tyrod gets injured, and the guy that Woody just shit on, has to come back into the game. And then credit to Justin Fields too. Like after the game, he says, he doesn't pay attention to the outside noise. And I don't know if somebody brought up Woody Johnson or whatever. Like, oh, well, what about Woody Johnson? It's like, yeah, it's still outside noise. It's like, he's the owner. Like he signs your paycheck, he's the outside noise. But I guess he kind of is right? Like he's not a coach or anything like that. But yeah, wild situation. But also with the offensive line too, just going forward, because we're assuming we have the staples of Fashanu at left tackle, and again, hopefully he continues to improve. You have Membo, and even if he doesn't, he's going to be here next year. So you have your left tackle, you have your right tackle, you have your center or guard. I think he gives you the flexibility that, okay, let's say a great guard is available, you put him in the center. If he's and vice versa, whatever it may be. Do you think ABT is definitely gone? And then past that, Simpson, I feel like he's been more up and down this season versus his 2 first seasons with the Jets, his first 2 seasons. Do you think he's a guy they retain, or what are your thoughts about like the rest of the interior going into 2026? Like how do they address those two spots that are kind of unfilled?
Yeah, I mean, maybe the silver lining with Simpson is that he's kind of played himself into keeping himself in that same price range that he was, because he, whatever you want to look at, film, PFF grade, whatever, he did have kind of a breakout year last year that might have put him, and when we were talking about it, like double digit per year territory for a guard. But this year numbers film down a little bit. Maybe you can get this a solid placeholder back who's still, what is he, like 20? I think he's 28. You could get him back for another 2-year, $12 million deal. And, if that's your weak link starter, it's still a nice place to be financially and roster wise. So, maybe he has played himself into being an affordable placeholder to get back, compete with the 4th round, 3rd round guard or something like that. And, AVT, maybe it's like a Becton situation where I think we all assumed after he had his second major injury that they were going to be done with him, but he came back, ended up starting. Maybe it just happens by default. But at the same time, it's just it's an even rougher track record than Becton at this point for AVT. Just the frequency of season-ending type injuries, it makes him really tough to trust. I mean, 3 and 4 years is tough. So, yeah, like you said, Tippmann's flexibility is a big bonus to have going into the draft, and even free agency, just considering both guards and centers, you can get the best player available, trust Tippmann at either spot. Because as you said earlier, I don't know if he's been so much better at guard to where it's his obvious spot moving forward. I think he's still an option at both positions. The only thing I think that does add appeal to him at guard is that we have seen with Josh Myers there, no snap issues. That has not been a thing this year. And I think that's something to consider. And especially if you have an offense like this one with a quarterback like Justin Fields, you're doing a lot of, read option, all this different stuff where the ball handling is a critical part of the play. I think the snaps could be even more detrimental, and we'll see what type of offense and quarterback they have next year. But that's the one thing, but I don't feel like as an overall player, he's been substantially better. And then with his extension coming up soon, they're assuming that they will want to do that, which I think they will. He'll be cheaper if he's a center. So that's another thing to consider. So there's a lot of moving parts, but I think the fact that they have the tackles locked down, hopefully Olu can continue trending up, and they have at least one interior lineman who has versatility. I think they're in a solid spot with the flexibility.
Maybe you're right, though. Maybe it's a thing where, like, if Simpson kept playing at the level he did the first 2 years, then he'd want 16, 17, $18 million a year. But maybe after this year, he's, 13, 14, something like that. Tippmann gives you that flexibility. Great. Maybe bring Myers back as a nice, like, versatile depth piece who I think relative to expectations, he's actually been playing okay this year. Right. So that's good. But yeah, well, I guess we'll see with the offensive line, what they do. Alex Hunt got to go to work. See you later. You guys going to any remaining road games? I'll be at New England. I was actually supposed to go to New England sneakers to boots, but after the start of the season, with the wife being pregnant and like just knowing some of the shit I would catch, I was just like, do I really want to spend all this money going to New England, renting Airbnb, spending money on the tickets to go there, watch them get blown out? So I actually canceled my trip. So I'm sorry. Maybe I'll make it down for the Ravens game. I don't know. Yeah, no, I can't, dude. Like, because I was even going to the games at the stadium. Like, I don't want to be at MetLife. Do I want to drive all the way to New England, which is only 5 hours? But do I really want to drive there to watch this team? I was like, I can't, But Glenn will always blame the media. He's a mess. He just, that's the thing with Glenn too. Like, he's blaming the media. Saying they're asking ridiculous questions when that clearly wasn't very ridiculous. Should I bench Justin Fields? Like, let me go call some of the coaches, when just a few months ago you were getting mad about people comparing you to Bill Parcells. I'm not Bill Parcells. I'm Aaron Glenn. But now it's, let me go call the coaches. So like, that. And then even this week with like, I know who the starter is, but you guys don't know. Why can't you just say something as simple as, well, we're deciding as a staff, we're still deciding as a staff who wants to be or who's going to be the starter. Like, why put the heat on you? So Glenn's been bad with the media. Now he's cracking some jokes and stuff and all of that. It's like, yeah, because you're winning, but when you lose, don't be a dick for unnecessary reasons. Sneakers to Boot says, a win is a step in the right direction, but the Jets need to show me why I should still believe. From a game management perspective, Glenn consistently appears to be lost in the sauce and overwhelmed. I think this game, like he, minus that one instance where I thought he maybe should have went for on fourth down and kicked a field goal. There's really nothing glaring that I noticed. But that's 1 out of 8 games, 7 of those games, or maybe 6, because the Steelers game wasn't brutal. He was making just absolutely awful decisions, but specifically back-to-back weeks, dude. The Broncos game to the Panthers game was the worst coaching in back-to-back games I've pretty much ever seen. So yeah, it's a step in the right direction, but like Donnie said before, it's one win. If we go out there, lose to the Pats, lose to the Dolphins, lose to the Browns, this doesn't matter. Like you have to build upon it. Enjoy it. Hopefully, not while we can, but hopefully we can enjoy a nice stretch of winning here, but you have to build upon it. Again, one win doesn't mean shit, really.
Yeah. And that's the thing that makes it kind of tough for me to really, I guess, enjoy this one too much, because at this point it's just 1 out of 8. And that's even from like a moral victory standpoint. Like, I guess you give them Pittsburgh, but regardless of win-loss, even if you're just looking at it in, by the standards of, what Glenn said before the season, he wants to put out a team that the fans can be proud of. They've done that 2 out of 6 games, or 2 out of 8 games so far, I would say. You could argue some of them, Tampa Bay, but I don't think they played a great game against the Bucs. So let's just say 2-6 in regards to meeting that bar. So that's just not good enough, regardless of, the talent, the quarterbacks, whatever. So I think there were big improvements in this game. I liked his aggressiveness throughout the 2-point attempts, and, they worked out. So, you look at it differently, but even the process behind those decisions, I think were good, because it wasn't just being aggressive for aggressiveness sake. I think it considered, we can't stop this offense. We're trailing, we're going to need points to keep up. So I think it was sparked by that as well. So I think it was good understanding of the context and feel for the game. He didn't blow any timeouts. They were aggressive at the end of the first half after the fiascos they had the last 2 weeks in that situation. The penalties,
which makes it even worse, right? That he specifically said in the media, if I can go back, I would throw a Hail Mary in that situation.
After the
next week,
game, and then the same situation, he didn't do it.
Like, so what are you doing, dude?
So he's got to stack this up. That's the thing, because that you called it the worst sequence you've seen of coaching. I think it's a very realistic argument, because in terms of the coaching impact, like, there's a lot of things we can't really measure, like who decides the play calls, designs the scheme, quarterback versus coach. A lot of that stuff is subjective, but what we can directly attribute to Glenn is the game management decisions. And for 2 straight games, he was sabotaging the team with his decisions, or lack thereof, at the end of those first halves. So I think this is a great coaching performance. I legitimately would call it great. I think he made the positive difference in this game with the aggressive decision making and the lack of mistakes, but it's still just one game. And if this is just a one-off in the end, then it doesn't mean a whole lot. So that's why you really need to see it stacked up before you could absolve him for the first 7 games and put him back into the territory where he's someone you feel good about going into next year. Because that's why, like, I wasn't rooting for them to lose this game, but he was pretty strongly trending towards the type of coach to where you're like, I don't want this coaching staff handling a young quarterback next year. So I kind of would rather him just bottom out and make it clear that they should start over and get a fresh start for this rookie quarterback. This was a good response to that criticism, but gotta keep doing it so we can see that it's a trend and not just a one-off.
I think you're pulling punches there too, in terms of like, this is just the staff I don't want to see develop a quarterback. I think he was on track to be the worst Jets coach maybe ever. Like,
in every respect, any way you could look at it, through 7 games, he was on that track. And even this barely changes it, because they got the win, but they won by 1 point against a Bengals team that is one of the worst in the league, regardless of their 3 wins. It's not a huge difference maker in terms of like your overall output as a team. So they're still kind of on that trajectory until they continue stacking the wins, or at least the quality games against good teams.
Yeah, in terms of like absolving him, he needs quite a few really good games to absolve him of what that was the first 7 games. Again, like, and again, hopefully it's positive from here on out, but realistically, he was worse than Gase has ever been, with the Jets. At least Gase scored opening drive touchdowns. That Gase had a lot less talent in 2020 than this team has. They won 2 games. So, he was dreadful. So hopefully he continues to improve. Like, hey, if we can win 4 more games, 5 more games this year, and he actually looks like a legit coach, awesome, but obviously still a lot to be determined with that one. Kev asked, who do you think will be traded? We kind of talked about this before. I said Quincy and MC2. And in terms of like the lesser guys, I can't really see much other than Lazard. So I would say those 3. I'll put the over-under at 2.5, with those being the 3 most likely to be traded, with Breece Hall at 4th. But I could see Lazard obviously going, even though the Steelers did just sign MVS, right? So maybe that eliminates the need for Lazard, even though they're very different players. But I don't know. Danger Zone, I'm calling Sabo to ask about Blewetts availability heading into next Tuesdays. We can work something out, I'm sure. I know I'm on the hook for Tuesday. I got the Asman show. I know on Monday I got Let's Talk Jets I'm doing. Who else asked? I think I'm doing something with, damn it, who was it on Twitter? I forget. Somebody else. But I got 3 lined up. So if I can fit in a 4th, I will. I'll try. We'll figure it out. Just let me know. Damn, who is that 4th? No, whatever. Needing to make a call. Yep, does anybody save his number? Sneakers and Boots, what are your guys' thoughts on the OC? I liked what he did this week, but overall has showed flashes and scheming, no names wide open. If we can get a top 15 to 20 quarterback in here, I like our odds. So I've kind of talked about this a lot. I know you have too. I know Sneakers and Boots is here a little bit late. We talked about some of the improvements in this game specifically that he made. But is there a good way you could sum it up for Sneakers and Boots?
Yeah, I just think the unpredictability. We saw run heavy drives, we saw pass run alternating, then there were pass heavy drives, and as you alluded to, there were Max Mitchell packages where they actually threw the ball.
Yeah.
So just a lot of mix. And I like that they threw more designed runs for Fields in the game, not just, read option, but, the QB keepers, the sweeps to the outside. That's when I think Fields is at his best because, frankly, you don't want him making a lot of decisions out there. So the less he has to make decisions, the more productive he could be. That's why he's so good as a scrambler, because he doesn't really think about throwing the ball on those broken down plays. He just decides to go make plays. And when he's an athlete, he's one of the best athletes in the league. So I like that they threw some more of those in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, no. I think overall he's been, like a C plus. I think this game maybe started to creep up into a B minus. I think he's capable. There's definitely been some rookie lumps with him, specifically like predictability. The 4th down play calls have been, they've lacked some creation to them. I want to see like more east and west stuff with like jet sweeps and end rounds and all of that. Also want to see more Justin Fields running the ball as a primary ball carrier. We didn't see a lot of that, but he added a lot of it this week. So hopefully he continues to improve as well. If Flacco had thrown to Chase at the end, we would have likely lost the game. Chase at the end, likely would have lost the game. I'm talking about the last play where he got pressured by JJ. Yeah, okay. But I could also say if Fields hits Arian Smith on a corner route where he was open, then that's an extra 4 points for the Jets, and they don't lose. Like you could do that with really any games. If Aaron Glenn knew where the Jets were and decided to kick a 62-yard field goal instead of thinking it was 68 or wherever he thought it was, then maybe they win that game. Like you could do that a lot. If this guy didn't drop this ball, they win it. So he didn't, and they won the game. So it is what it is. Is Alec Pierce a possible free agent we can sign? I haven't looked into Alex Pierce. I know he's more
thought about free agents much yet.
Yeah, I know he's a deep threat. I know that they have Arian Smith for that role. I'm assuming they would want to go elsewhere. And again, a lot of it depends on, you're talking about the offense with the quarterbacks they bring in. They're going to run a much different offense if they bring in Mendoza versus if they bring in Simpson. Like those are 2 different quarterbacks. So they're going to have to do different things with each one of those guys. So it completely depends. You can do some read option stuff with Simpson. You can't with Mendoza. Mendoza's a guy who doesn't take a lot of deep shots down the field. Are you going to add Alex Pierce with Arian Smith to take to have a quarterback who doesn't take deep shots and have two deep shot guys, like, it doesn't make sense. If they bring in Simpson, okay, maybe. It's just there's a lot of avenues they can go. We still don't know who's the quarterback is even going to be, and what Engstrand necessarily wants to do next year, building upon this year. So loaded question. I don't know. Can we possibly sign him? No doubt. Will they? If I had to bet my odds on it, no, because I'll take the field. I'll take the 31 of the teams to sign him over the Jets, but. Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything I have to jump off the latest by 12:15? But is there anything else you want to add to this game? I have to figure out who was on Twitter saying they. I forget who the other show was, but I feel bad now, so I'm gonna try to find it while we're wrapping this up. But any other thoughts about this game?
I don't know. I feel like we kind of nailed it down pretty well. I mean, I just think it's an interesting spot. It's a step in the right direction, but I'm just hoping that it's part of a larger turnaround and not something you look back on as just that 1 or 2 wins that they got. So I think we kind of hit on that mentality that we kind of reacted to this with.
Yeah, damn. Okay, I forget. Play like a Jets, another one. So that's actually 4, and I think there's a 5th. So you might be shit out of luck, Daniel. You asked too late, but no, I appreciate you guys. Next, is there anything you do want to preview for the next week? Articles you have coming up or anything like that to look forward to? I know that obviously you'll still have some Bengals stuff at least the next day or two. But anything to preview?
Well, I mean, I did a Cool Your Jets podcast on this game yesterday. Definitely check that one out. I went pretty deep into my thoughts on all the game management decisions from Glenn in this one, which I thought generally were really good. So that's a step in the right direction. Check that out. Definitely, if you haven't, check out my article I did on Nick Mangold and kind of my thoughts on him and his legacy, his impact that he had on me as a fan. I really feel proud about that article. So check that one out if you haven't. It's pinned on my Twitter profile. But yeah, we'll see. Bye week is interesting. They get it right in the middle here. So we get a nice kind of chance to evaluate this whole first half of the season, split it into 2 pretty relatively even halves of football here. So it should be plenty of overall kind of recap stuff of what we've seen so far.
Yeah. For me, you're going to have the review, the short review, and then I think I'm going to put out like a mini review of the quarterbacks. It feels like the wrong time because the Jets won a game, but I think I'm going to do like a 20 to 30 minute little review on all of Ty Simpson, Moore, and then Mendoza. So check that out. And past that, I got nothing. So we appreciate